Emma's hands trembled as she stared at the iron gates towering before her. This couldn't be right. The marriage broker had sworn Thomas Collins was barely scraping by, a rough cowboy desperate enough to marry a stranger for her father's debt payment. But the mansion rising behind those gates, 3 stories of white stone and gleaming windows, mocked everything she'd been told. Her throat tightened. Had her father sold her into something far worse than poverty? The carriage driver cleared his throat impatiently. Emma's last chance to run was slipping away with every second she hesitated. But where would she go? Boston had already discarded her. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's continue with Emma's journey. Emma forced her feet to move. The driver had already unloaded her trunk onto the gravel drive and was climbing back onto his seat. She opened her mouth to call him back, but pride choked the words. She wouldn't beg. Not anymore. The gate swung open silently. No rusty hinges. No weeds crawling through the ironwork. Someone maintained this property with care and money. Her pulse hammered against her ribs. Every step toward that massive front door felt like walking toward her own execution. The marriage contract was signed. Legal. Binding. Her father had made certain she understood that before he'd practically shoved her onto the train west. "You'll do your duty to this family, Emma," he'd said, not meeting her eyes. "Collins needs a wife. We need his payment. Simple business." Simple. She almost laughed. Nothing about this felt simple. The front door opened before she could knock. A woman stood there, 50s, gray-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun, wearing a dress far too fine for a struggling ranch household. "Miss Porter, I presume?" The woman's voice was crisp. "I'm Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper. Mr. Collins is expecting you." Housekeeper. A mansion. None of this matched what Emma had been told. "I think there's been a mistake," Emma said. Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. "I was supposed to meet Thomas Collins." "The rancher?" "You are." Mrs. Chen stepped aside. "Come in. You'll catch cold standing there." Emma's legs moved on instinct. The entrance hall was larger than her entire bedroom back in Boston. Polished marble floors, a chandelier dripping with crystals, dark wood paneling that gleamed with recent wax. Her trunk looked pathetic sitting there among all that wealth. "This can't be his house," Emma whispered. "It's been in the Collins family for 30 years. Mrs. Chen closed the door with a firm click. "Mr. Collins will explain everything." "Will he?" Emma's hands clenched in her skirts. "Because so far, everyone's been very good at explaining nothing." "Emma Porter." The voice came from the top of the stairs. Deep. Controlled. Emma looked up and felt her breath catch. Thomas Collins stood on the landing. Tall. Broad-shouldered. His face was weathered in a way that spoke of genuine outdoor work, but his clothes, dark trousers, white shirt, embroidered vest, cost more than her father earned in 6 months. His dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to step back. "Mr. Collins." She lifted her chin. She wouldn't cower. "I believe we need to talk." "I believe we do." He descended the stairs with measured steps. "Mrs. Chen, please have dinner prepared for 2. We'll eat in an hour." "Of course, sir." The housekeeper disappeared down a hallway. Thomas stopped 3 feet from Emma, close enough that she could see the gray threading through his dark hair. He looked to be in his late 30s, 15 years older than her 23, old enough to have accumulated secrets. "You're not what I expected," he said. "That makes 2 of us." Emma met his gaze directly. Who are you, really? Your husband, as of yesterday. The proxy marriage was legal. I know what's legal, her voice sharpened. What I don't know is why a man who owns a mansion needs to buy a wife from a desperate family in Boston. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. You're direct. Good. I prefer honesty. Then be honest with me. After dinner. He gestured toward a doorway. Mrs. Chen will show you to your room. You'll want to rest. I don't want to rest. I want answers. And you'll get them. Thomas's jaw tightened. But not standing in my entrance hall like we're conducting a business negotiation. Isn't that what this is? Emma's hands trembled, but she kept them steady. You paid my father. I'm here. That sounds like business to me. Your father told you that? My father told me you were a struggling rancher who needed a wife to help work your land. Her laugh came out bitter. He said you lived in a small cabin, that I'd be expected to cook and clean and help with cattle. Was any of that true? Thomas was quiet for a long moment. His eyes traveled over her face, like he was trying to read something written there. No, he finally said. None of it was true. The admission hit harder than she'd expected. Emma's knees felt suddenly weak. Then what am I doing here? The question came out barely above a whisper. If you don't need a worker, why marry me at all? Because I needed a wife who wouldn't ask questions. Thomas's expression went carefully blank. Your father assured me you were practical, that you understood the arrangement. Practical. The word tasted like ash. You mean desperate enough not to care who bought me. I didn't buy you. No? Emma's voice rose. Then what do you call paying off my family's debts in exchange for a marriage contract? What word would you use? I call it providing you an escape. Thomas's voice stayed level. Your father gambled away everything your family owned. You were 3 weeks from debtor's prison, or worse. I offered you a way out. And what do you get out of this generous rescue? Emma felt her control slipping. Why does a man with all this, she gestured at the opulent hall, need to marry a stranger? That's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. Thomas studied her for another long moment. Then he turned toward the stairs. Follow me. I'm not going anywhere until you answer me. He stopped, looked back. If I tell you everything now, you'll run. And there's nowhere for you to run to. So yes, Emma, you're going to follow me. You're going to see your room. You're going to have dinner with me. And then, when you've had time to understand that this is real and permanent, I'll explain why you're here. The certainty in his voice made her furious. But he was right. She had nowhere to go. No money. No family who wanted her back. She was trapped by her own desperation. Fine. She picked up her skirts. Show me my cage. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. It's a very comfortable cage. Emma followed him up the stairs. Her heart pounded with each step. The hallway on the second floor stretched impossibly long. Doors lined both sides. How many rooms did one man need? Thomas stopped at a door near the end. Opened it. The bedroom beyond was larger than her entire family's parlor. A 4-poster bed dominated the space. Heavy curtains framed tall windows. A wardrobe. A vanity. A sitting area with 2 chairs and a small table. This is yours, Thomas said. The door locks from the inside. Emma turned to him sharply. Why would I need to lock it? Because I'm giving you the choice. His expression remained neutral. This marriage is legal. But I'm not a monster, Emma. Your room is your own. I won't enter without permission. How noble. Sarcasm dripped from every word. Is that supposed to make me grateful? It's supposed to make you feel safe. Thomas's voice dropped. I know you didn't choose this. Neither did I, really. But we're bound now. We can make this tolerable, or we can make it hell. Your choice. You're giving me a choice? Emma laughed. Now? After everything's already decided? Yes, he met her eyes. You can hate me, fight me every step, make both our lives miserable. Or you can accept that this is your life now and decide to make something of it. I'm offering you security, comfort, protection, things your father couldn't provide. Protection from what? The question shot out before she could stop it. What am I supposed to need protection from? Thomas's jaw worked. He looked away. Dinner's in an hour, he said. Mrs. Chen will come for you. Don't walk away from me. Emma grabbed his arm. The muscle beneath his sleeve was solid, real. He stiffened under her touch, but didn't pull away. You can't say something like that and just leave. Yes, I can. He gently removed her hand. Because you're not ready to hear the rest yet. Trust me on that. Trust you? Her voice broke. I don't even know you. No. Something almost sad crossed his face. You don't. But you will, whether you want to or not. He left, closed the door behind him with a soft click. Emma stood frozen. Her mind spun with questions, fears, anger. She walked to the window. The view stretched over manicured gardens, rolling hills beyond, cattle grazing in distant pastures. It was beautiful, peaceful, completely wrong. A knock came at the door. Miss Porter? Mrs. Chen's voice. I've brought fresh water and towels. May I enter? Emma unlocked the door. The housekeeper swept in carrying linens and a pitcher. The washroom is through there. Mrs. Chen nodded toward a side door. I've laid out a dress for dinner. Your trunk will be unpacked shortly. Mrs. Chen, Emma caught her arm. Please, tell me what's happening here. Why did he marry me? The older woman's expression softened slightly. That's not my story to tell. Everyone keeps saying that, frustration mounted. But I'm the one who's been brought here under false pretenses. Don't I deserve to know? Mr. Collins is a good man. Mrs. Chen set down the lemons. Whatever he's done, he has his reasons. Give him time. I don't want to give him time. I want the truth. Then you'll have to earn it from him. The housekeeper moved toward the door. Dinner at 7. Don't be late. She left Emma alone with her questions. Emma sank onto the bed. The mattress was soft, expensive. Everything in this room whispered wealth, but none of it explained why a rich man would pay off her father's gambling debts to acquire a wife he didn't seem to want. Unless he did want her. And that thought sent ice through her veins. She stood, paced. Her mind raced through possibilities, none of them good. Maybe he couldn't find a willing wife. Maybe his reputation was so damaged that no respectable woman would have him. Maybe... The washroom door stood open. Emma walked through it and stopped. Another room, as large as the bedroom. A copper bathtub, running water, mirrors. The luxury made her dizzy. She caught her reflection. Pale. Dark circles under her eyes from 3 days of train travel. Her brown hair hung limp. Her dress, her best dress, looked shabby against all this wealth. What have you gotten yourself into? She whispered to her reflection. No answer came. Time passed. Emma washed, changed into the dress Mrs. Chen had left. It fit perfectly, deep blue silk that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe back home. Someone had taken her measurements. planned for her arrival. The thought made her stomach clench. At 7, Mrs. Chen knocked again. Emma followed her downstairs to a dining room that could have seated 20. Thomas sat at the head of a long table. 2 place settings were laid, one at the head, one to the right. Close, intimate, deliberate. "Please, sit." Thomas stood as she entered. Formal manners from a man who'd claimed to be a simple rancher. Emma sat. A young woman in a maid's uniform poured wine, set down plates of food that smelled incredible. Emma's stomach growled despite her nerves. "Thank you, Mary." Thomas dismissed the maid with a nod. They were alone. Silence stretched. Emma picked up her fork. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of asking again. If he wanted to keep secrets, fine. She could wait. She could be just as stubborn as he clearly was. "Your father and I met 6 months ago," Thomas said suddenly. "In Denver. He was trying to secure a loan." Emma's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "He told me about his debts, about you, about how desperate he was." Thomas cut into his steak with precise movements. "He also told me he had a daughter who was educated, sensible, old enough to understand necessity." "So you decided I'd do?" Bitterness leaked through. "Convenient and desperate?" "I decided you deserved better than what he was planning for you." Thomas looked up. "Did he tell you about the other offers he'd received?" Ice flooded Emma's veins. "What other offers?" 2 merchants in Boston, both married, both looking for a mistress they could control through debt. Thomas's voice went hard. "And 1 man in New York who makes his money running brothels. Your father was considering all of them when I made my offer." The room tilted. Emma gripped the table edge. "You're lying." "I'm not." Thomas set down his knife. "I have the letters. I can show you. Your father was going to sell you to the highest bidder. I just happened to bid marriage instead of degradation." "Why?" The word came out choked. "Why would you do that?" "Because I needed a wife who had no connections to my world," he said it simply. "No family here who'd ask questions. No friends who'd want to visit. Someone who'd be content to stay hidden." "Hidden?" Emma's hands shook. "Hidden from what?" Thomas pushed back from the table, walked to the window. His back stayed to her. "From the people who want to kill me." The words hung in the air like smoke. Emma couldn't breathe. "What?" she finally managed. "I'm not just a rancher, Emma." Thomas's shoulders were tense. "I inherited this land and this house and a fortune in gold that's buried beneath it. And there are people, powerful people, who want to take it all. They've tried legal means. Those failed. Now they're trying other methods." "You brought me here to be, what, a target?" Emma shot to her feet. "Did you marry me to use me as some kind of shield?" "No." He turned. His face was carved from stone. "I married you to give you protection, and to give myself cover." "Cover for what?" "For appearing normal." Thomas's laugh was hollow. "A married man settling down, starting a family. They're less likely to suspect I'm preparing for war if I look like I'm preparing for domestic life." "War." Emma's voice came from far away. "You're preparing for war." "Yes." He crossed to her, stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head to meet his eyes. "And I'm sorry you're caught in it. But you're safer here than you would have been wherever your father sold you. At least here, I can protect you." "You're insane." Emma backed away. "This is insane." "It's survival." Thomas followed her. "Mine and now yours. The contract is signed. The marriage is legal. You're Emma Collins now, and that means you're under my protection, whether you want it or not." "I don't want any of this." Tears burned behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. I want to go home." "You don't have a home." The bluntness of it cut deep. "Your father made sure of that. He sold everything. The house, the furniture, everything. He took my money and disappeared. You can't go back, Emma. There's nothing to go back to." The truth hit like a physical blow. Emma's knees gave out. She sank into a chair. Her father had betrayed her completely, sold her and abandoned her. Thomas knelt beside her chair. His hand hovered near hers, but didn't touch. "I know this is overwhelming," he said quietly. "I know you're scared and angry. But I swear to you, I will keep you safe. You're my wife now. That means something to me, even if it doesn't to you yet." Emma looked at him through blurred vision. "What does it mean?" "It means no one touches you. No one threatens you. No one takes you from here." His voice was steel wrapped in promise. "And it means I'll teach you everything you need to know to survive in this world I've brought you into. You'll learn to protect yourself, to fight back if you need to. You won't be helpless, Emma. I won't let you be." "Why should I believe anything you say?" But her voice lacked strength. Shock was settling into her bones. "Because I'm the only person telling you the truth." Thomas stood, extended his hand. "And because, deep down, you know your father lied about everything. But I haven't, not once. Ask me anything, I'll answer honestly." Emma stared at his hand. This was her crossroads. Accept this nightmare or what? She had nothing, no one. Just this stranger who claimed to want to protect her from dangers she couldn't even imagine. She took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. "Who wants you dead?" she asked. "A land company called Western Development Corporation. They want my gold mines. They've tried buying me out. I refused. Now they're trying intimidation. Soon, it'll escalate to violence." "When?" "Soon." Thomas didn't release her hand. "Maybe weeks, maybe days. That's why I needed someone here. Someone who'd make this feel like a real home instead of a fortress." "So I'm set decoration." The bitterness was back. "No." His grip tightened slightly. "You're my wife, and that makes you important, valuable, worth protecting, whether you believe it yet or not." Emma pulled her hand free, stepped back. She needed space, air, time to think. "I need to be alone," she said. "Of course." Thomas moved toward the door, paused. "Emma?" She looked at him. "Welcome to Collins Manor," he said. "I hope someday you'll be glad you're here." He left. Emma stood in the dining room, surrounded by wealth and danger and lies. Her life had become something she didn't recognize. A stranger in a house of secrets, married to a man preparing for war, trapped by her father's greed and her own desperation. She walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the hills. Beautiful. Peaceful. False. Everything was false here, including, she was starting to suspect, the woman she'd been in Boston. That Emma had been naive, trusting, weak. This Emma, Emma Collins, would have to be something different, something stronger. She didn't know if she had that strength, but she was about to find out. Because Thomas was right about one thing. There was no going back. Only forward into whatever nightmare he'd brought her into. And she'd survive it. Somehow. She had to. Because the alternative was unthinkable. She didn't sleep that night, and by the time dawn broke through her windows, Emma had made her decision. Thomas found her in his study at 7 in the morning. She'd picked the lock with a hairpin, a skill her mother's housemaid had taught her years ago, though Emma had never imagined she'd need it. He stopped in the doorway, coffee cup halfway to his mouth. "You're resourceful," he said. "I need to see the letters." Emma stood behind his desk. "The ones from my father's other offers? You said you had them." Thomas set down his cup, crossed to a cabinet, pulled out a locked drawer. Emma noticed he didn't ask how she'd gotten in. He simply handed her a folder. The letters inside made her stomach turn. The New York brothel owner had offered $3,000. Cash. Immediate. The two Boston merchants had offered less, but included promises of comfortable accommodations and discreet arrangements. Her father's replies were in his handwriting. Negotiating. Bargaining over her like she was livestock. He was going to choose the New York offer, Thomas said quietly. The money was better. Emma's hands shook. She set the folder down carefully. "When did you make your counteroffer?" "The day before he signed with them. I offered $5,000 and the legal marriage. He took it." 5,000. The number felt obscene. "That's what I'm worth?" "That's what it cost to save you." Thomas picked up the folder, locked it away again. "I don't expect gratitude, but I do expect you to understand what you escaped." "I understand I traded one cage for another." Emma met his eyes. "At least be honest about that much." "It's an honest cage." Thomas leaned against his desk. "And the door's not locked. You can leave any time. I won't stop you." "With no money? No contacts? Nowhere to go?" Emma laughed bitterly. "That's not freedom. That's abandonment." "So, what do you want from me?" The question came out tired. "Tell me what would make this bearable, and I'll try to give it to you." Emma hadn't expected that. She studied him, really looked at him for the first time since arriving. The exhaustion in his face, the tension in his shoulders. He looked like a man carrying weight he couldn't set down. "I want to know everything," she said. "The gold, the company trying to kill you, what you're planning, all of it. If I'm stuck in this nightmare, I deserve to know what I'm stuck in." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to his desk, pulled out a map, spread it across the surface. "This is Collins' land." His finger traced boundaries. 15,000 acres. Most of it cattle range. But here, he pointed to a section marked with X's. And here, gold veins. Rich ones. My grandfather discovered them in 1851. Kept them secret. Mined just enough to build this house and secure the family fortune. Why keep it secret? Emma moved closer to see better. Because the moment word got out, we'd have been overrun. Claim jumpers, mining companies, the government. Thomas's jaw tightened. My grandfather was smart. He bought the land legally, registered it under agricultural use, built a cattle operation as cover. The gold stayed hidden. Until now. Until now. Thomas pulled out another document. Western Development Corporation somehow found out. They've been buying up land around mine for 2 years, squeezing me from all sides. They want my property, but they can't force me to sell. So they're trying other methods. What methods? Intimidation at first. My cattle started disappearing. Fences cut, water sources poisoned. Then my foreman was attacked in the road to town, beaten badly enough that he can't work anymore. Thomas's voice went flat. That was 3 months ago. Since then, it's escalated. How? 2 of my ranch hands quit after their families received threatening letters. Another one's house burned down while he was working here. His wife barely escaped. And last month, Thomas stopped. His hands gripped the desk edge. Last month, someone took a shot at me outside the barn, missed by inches. Emma's breath caught. They're trying to kill you. They're trying to scare me into selling. Death is just their final negotiating tactic. He looked up. That's why I needed a wife. They need to believe I'm settling down, building a future. Less likely to suspect I'm preparing to fight back if I look like I'm preparing for domestic life. The words from last night, they hit differently now, with daylight and details backing them up. "What are you preparing?" Emma asked. "Evidence." Thomas pulled out a ledger. "I've been tracking everything, every incident, every threat. I have witnesses, documentation. I'm building a legal case to bring to the territorial governor. If I can prove Western Development is behind the violence, they'll lose their charter. And if you can't prove it, then I fight them another way." His expression hardened. "This land is mine. My family bled for it. I'm not giving it up because some Eastern company decided they want my gold." Emma heard the steel in his voice. This wasn't a man who'd back down, which meant the violence would get worse. "What happens when they realize I'm not just decorative?" she asked. "When they figure out marrying me didn't change your plans?" "They won't touch you." Thomas said it with absolute certainty. "You're my wife. That makes you untouchable by their code." "What code? You just said they're willing to kill you." "Kill me, yes. But harm a woman? A wife?" He shook his head. "These are wealthy men, Emma. Eastern businessmen who think they're civilized. They have lines they won't cross. Murdering a wife would bring federal attention they can't afford." "You're gambling my safety on their sense of propriety?" Emma's voice rose. "These same men who burned down a family's house?" "That was different. That was pressure. This," Thomas gestured between them, "this is protection. As long as you're my wife, you're safer than you'd be anywhere else. Unless they decide their gold is worth more than their reputation." "They won't." But Thomas's voice carried a thread of doubt he couldn't quite hide. Emma saw it. "You're not sure?" "I'm sure enough." He rolled up the map. "And I'm taking precautions. You'll learn to shoot, to ride, to defend yourself if necessary. You won't be helpless." "When do we start?" Thomas looked startled. "Start what?" "Teaching me." Emma crossed her arms. "You said I'd learn. When?" "You want to learn?" He sounded genuinely surprised. "I want to survive." Emma's voice was hard. "You brought me into this. The least you can do is make sure I can protect myself when your plans fall apart." Something shifted in Thomas's expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. "This afternoon," he said. "After lunch. Meet me at the stable." "Fine." Emma turned to leave, stopped at the door. "Thomas?" "Yes?" "If they do come for you, if it gets worse than you're expecting, I need to know. Don't hide it from me. Don't try to protect me by keeping me ignorant." "I won't." "Promise me." Thomas held her gaze. "I promise." Emma nodded and left. She didn't know if she believed him, but it was a start. The morning passed in a blur. Mrs. Chen showed her through the house. Dozens of rooms, most unused. The kitchen, where two cooks prepared meals. The servant quarters, where staff lived. The library, filled with books Emma ached to read. Everything spoke of wealth carefully maintained. But Emma saw other things, too. The windows on the ground floor had new locks, heavy ones. The back entrance had a bar that could seal it from inside. And in the hallway outside Thomas's bedroom, she noticed marks on the floor where furniture had been moved to create clear sight lines. He was fortifying, quietly, carefully, preparing for siege. Lunch was tense. Thomas ate quickly, his mind clearly elsewhere. Emma picked at her food. "Tell me about Western Development," she said. "Who runs it?" "A man named Clayton Birch. Philadelphia money. Railroad connections. He's bought half the territory already." Thomas set down his fork. "He's ruthless, but smart. Everything he does stays just legal enough to avoid prosecution." "How did he find out about your gold?" I don't know. Thomas's frustration bled through. I've been careful. My grandfather was careful. The mines aren't marked on any public maps. But somehow, Birch knows. And now he wants it. Could someone have told him? Someone who works for you? I've considered that. Thomas's voice went cold. I've considered everything. But I trust my people. They've been with my family for years. Someone always breaks, Emma said quietly. For enough money, or enough fear. Thomas looked at her sharply. Your father taught you that? My father taught me that everyone has a price. Bitterness crept in. He certainly found his. I'm not your father, Emma. No, you're the man who bought what he was selling. She stood. I'll meet you at the stable. She left before he could respond. The stable was larger than her Boston house. Horses in clean stalls, equipment organized with military precision. A young man, maybe 20, was brushing down a gray mare when Emma arrived. You must be Mrs. Collins, he touched his hat. I'm David. I manage the horses. Emma, she corrected automatically. Just Emma. Yes, ma'am. David's smile was friendly. Mr. Collins said you'd be learning to ride. This is Willow. She's gentle. Good for beginners. Emma approached the mare. Willow's dark eyes were calm, patient. I rode a little as a child, Emma said, but it's been years. It'll come back. David led Willow out. Let me saddle her up. Thomas arrived as David was adjusting stirrups. He'd changed into work clothes, rough canvas pants, plain shirt, worn boots. He looked more like the cowboy Emma had been promised, and less like the wealthy landowner he actually was. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. They started in the corral. Thomas was patient but demanding. He showed her how to mount, how to hold the reins, how to communicate with the horse through subtle shifts in weight and pressure. Riding isn't about force, he said. It's about partnership. The horse has to trust you, and you have to trust the horse. Emma tried not to see the parallel, tried to focus on Willow's movements beneath her. But the metaphor was too obvious. After an hour, Thomas led them out of the corral. They rode slowly through the nearest pasture. Cattle grazed in the distance. The afternoon sun was warm. This land's been in your family for 30 years, Emma said. What was here before? Nothing. Open range. My grandfather claimed it during the land rush. Built everything from dirt. Pride colored Thomas's voice. He came west with nothing. Made something real. And now someone wants to take it. Yes. Thomas's hand tightened on his reins. But they won't. I'll die first. That's not reassuring. Emma kept her voice light. Given that I'm apparently tied to your fate now. You don't have to be. Thomas looked at her. I meant what I said. You can leave. I'll give you money. Passage anywhere you want to go. New identity if you need it. And the marriage? Annulment. On grounds it was never consummated. Easy enough to arrange. Emma's throat tightened. He was offering her freedom. Real freedom. Everything she'd wanted since arriving. Why? She asked. Why offer that now? Because you're right. This is a cage. And maybe, Thomas's voice roughened, maybe you deserve better than being trapped by someone else's war. They rode in silence. Emma's mind raced. She could leave, take his money, start over somewhere new, away from danger and secrets and forced marriages. But where would she go? Back east where she had nothing? West where she knew no one? She'd still be alone, still be running from her father's debts and reputation. At least here she had purpose, protection, a chance to become something stronger than the desperate girl who'd climbed out of that carriage yesterday. No, she finally said. Thomas looked at her sharply. No? I'm not leaving. Emma met his eyes. You're right. I don't have anywhere to go. But more than that, I'm tired of running. Tired of being helpless. If you're going to teach me to fight, then teach me. If this is my life now, I'm going to learn to live it. Something flickered across Thomas's face. Relief, maybe, or something else Emma couldn't name. Then we keep training, he said. They rode until Emma's legs ached and her hands were sore from gripping the reins. When they returned to the stable, David was waiting with news that made Thomas's face go hard. Riders came by while you were out, David said. 3 men. Said they were from Western Development. Asked to speak to you. What did you tell them? Thomas dismounted quickly. That you weren't receiving visitors. They left a message. David pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Said to give you this. Thomas read it, his jaw clenched. What does it say? Emma asked. It's an invitation. Thomas crumpled the paper. To dinner, tomorrow night in town. Clayton Birch wants to meet my new wife. The words hung heavy between them. He knows, Emma said. About the marriage. Of course he knows. Thomas's voice was bitter. He probably knew before the proxy ceremony was even done. He has eyes everywhere. So what do we do? We go. Thomas looked at her. We smile. We play the happy newlyweds. We give him nothing to use against us. You want me to have dinner with the man trying to kill you? Emma's voice rose. Are you insane? I want you to help me prove I'm not a threat, that I'm settling down, being domestic. Thomas stepped closer. This is exactly what I married you for, Emma, to play this role. Can you do it? Emma wanted to say no, wanted to throw his words back in his face, but she'd just told him she wouldn't run, that she'd learned to fight. This was fighting, just a different kind. Yes, she said, I can do it. Good. Thomas's hand brushed her arm. Brief, almost apologetic. I'll teach you everything you need to know about Birch before we go. His background, his weaknesses, how to read him. And what if he sees through us? Then we improvise. Thomas's smile was sharp. And hope we're better liars than he is. That evening, Thomas sat Emma down in his study and pulled out a photograph. The man staring back at her had cold eyes and a politician's smile. Clayton Birch, Thomas said, 52 years old, born in Philadelphia. Made his first fortune in railroads, his second in timber. Now he's buying up land across the West. He looks ordinary, Emma said. The observation felt dangerous. That's what makes him effective. Thomas set down the photo. He doesn't look like a killer. He looks like a businessman. Respectable, trustworthy. People sell to him because they believe his promises. And then? And then they realize too late that his contracts have clauses that strip them of everything. Thomas's voice hardened. He's destroyed a dozen families in this territory alone. All legal, all documented, all impossible to fight. Emma studied the photograph again. What does he want from tomorrow's dinner? To assess you, to see if you're real or just another strategy. Thomas met her eyes. He'll try to separate us, get you alone, ask questions designed to trip you up. What kind of questions? How we met, how long we've known each other, whether you're happy. Thomas leaned forward. He'll be charming, concerned. He'll act like he's worried about your well-being, like he wants to help you. And I'm supposed to convince him I'm madly in love with you? Sarcasm leaked through. You're supposed to convince him you're content enough not to leave. That's all. Thomas's expression was carefully neutral. Love would be suspicious. We've been married less than a week. But contentment? Acceptance? That he'll believe. How do I show contentment I don't feel? You lie. Thomas said it simply. You smile when he's watching. You let me touch your hand. You act like being here is better than whatever you left behind. It is better, Emma admitted quietly. That's not even a lie. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement of the reality neither wanted to name, that this forced arrangement had given Emma something her old life never had. Security, even if it came wrapped in danger. Good, Thomas said. Then tomorrow should be easy. But nothing about the next day felt easy. Mrs. Chen woke Emma before dawn with news that made her blood run cold. Another ranch hand quit during the night, the housekeeper said. Took his family and left. No notice, no explanation. Emma found Thomas in the barn. He was checking locks on the tack room with David.
How many does that make? She asked.
7. Thomas didn't look at her. In 3 months. I'm running out of workers. They're scared. They should be. He straightened. David, double-check all the perimeter fences today. I want to know if anything's been cut or damaged. Yes, sir. David left quickly. Thomas turned to Emma. This is Birch's work. He's squeezing me from every angle, taking my workers, isolating me. So tonight's dinner is about more than assessment. Emma understood suddenly. He wants to see how much pressure you can take before you break. Yes, Thomas's jaw was tight. Which is why we can't give him anything. No cracks, no weaknesses. No truth, Emma added. Especially no truth. They spent the afternoon rehearsing. Thomas drilled her on their fabricated history. They'd met through a mutual friend in Denver, courted for 6 months through letters, married quickly when Emma's circumstances changed. The lies had enough truth woven through them to sound plausible. What if he asks about my family? Emma said. Tell him they've passed. Thomas's voice was flat. It's close enough to true. Your father's dead to you now anyway. The word stung, but Emma couldn't argue. Her father had sold her. That was its own kind of death. By the time Mrs. Chen came to help her dress for dinner, Emma's nerves were screaming. The housekeeper had laid out a gown Emma hadn't seen before. Deep green silk with black lace. Expensive. Elegant. Exactly the kind of thing a wealthy man's wife would wear. Where did this come from? Emma asked. Mr. Collins had it made for you. It arrived this morning. Mrs. Chen began fastening the back. He has good taste. It suits you. Emma looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back looked nothing like the desperate girl who'd arrived days ago. This woman looked polished, confident, like she belonged in a mansion, like she belonged to Thomas Collins. The thought made her stomach twist. Thomas was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He'd changed into a dark suit that made him look dangerous and refined at once. His eyes traveled over her, and something flickered in his expression. You look perfect, he said. I look like a liar. We're all liars tonight. He offered his arm. Are you ready? No. But Emma took his arm anyway. Let's go. The carriage ride into town was tense. Thomas sat across from her, his posture rigid. Remember, he said, Birch will try to get under your skin. He'll say things designed to make you react. Don't. I know how to control myself. Do you? Thomas's gaze was sharp. Because if you slip, if you give him even a moment of doubt, he'll use it against us. I said I won't. Emma's hands clenched in her skirts. Don't you trust me? I barely know you. The honesty cut deeper than it should have. Emma looked away. Then why did you marry me? She asked quietly. Because I was desperate. Thomas's voice was rough. And because you seem like someone who could survive this. Was I wrong? Emma met his eyes. You're about to find out. The restaurant was the finest in town. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, waiters in formal attire. Clayton Birch was already seated when they arrived. He stood as they approached, his smile warm and welcoming. Mr. Collins, how wonderful to finally meet face to face. Birch extended his hand. Thomas shook it briefly. And this must be your lovely bride. Emma Collins, Thomas said. His hand moved to the small of Emma's back. Possessive, protective. Emma, this is Clayton Birch. Mrs. Collins? Birch took her hand and kissed it. His lips were cold. What a pleasure. Thomas, you didn't tell me your wife was so charming. I don't share personal details with business rivals, Thomas said smoothly. Rivals, Birch laughed as they sat. Such harsh language. I prefer to think of us as colleagues with different visions. Your vision involves stealing my land. Thomas's voice stayed pleasant. That's not collegiality. That's theft. Theft? Birch's eyebrows rose. I've made you several generous offers, all refused. If anyone's being unreasonable, Thomas, it's you. Emma felt Thomas tense beside her. She placed her hand over his on the table, a gesture meant to look affectionate, a warning to stay calm. My husband has worked very hard to build what he has, Emma said. Her voice was gentle. Surely you can understand his reluctance to part with it. Birch's attention shifted to her like a hawk spotting prey. Of course. A man's legacy is important. But Mrs. Collins, may I call you Emma? Sometimes holding on to the past prevents us from embracing a better future. And sometimes letting go means losing everything that matters. Emma kept her smile in place. I'm sure you didn't invite us to dinner just to debate philosophy, Mr. Birch. Please, call me Clayton. His smile widened. And you're right. I invited you because I wanted to meet the woman who finally convinced Thomas to settle down. He's been alone out there so long. It must be quite an adjustment for you. Every marriage is an adjustment. Emma took a sip of wine. But I'm finding Collins Manor quite comfortable. I'm sure it is. That house is magnificent. Birch leaned forward slightly. How did you and Thomas meet? He's been rather secretive about the whole courtship. Here it was, the first test. Through a mutual friend in Denver, Emma said. We corresponded for several months before meeting in person. When we did, we knew quite quickly that we suited each other. How romantic. Birch's eyes stayed sharp despite his warm tone. And your family? Are they pleased with the match? My family has passed. Emma let her voice carry just enough grief. Thomas has been very kind in helping me through that loss. I'm sorry to hear it. Birch's sympathy sounded genuine. It must be lonely out at the ranch. So isolated. Do you have many visitors? We prefer our privacy, Thomas cut in. Emma's adjusting to life in the territory. She doesn't need the complication of social obligations yet. Of course, of course. Birch sat back. Though isolation can be dangerous, Thomas. You've had some trouble lately, haven't you? Workers leaving? Equipment damaged? It would be terrible if something happened and you were too far from help. The threat was barely veiled. Emma felt Thomas's hand tighten under hers. We manage, Thomas said. I'm sure you do. But Emma, Birch turned to her again. You must worry. A woman alone out there while Thomas handles business? What if something were to happen? I'm not afraid, Emma said. The lie came easily. Thomas has taught me to take care of myself. Has he? Birch's interest sharpened. How progressive. Most men prefer their wives delicate and dependent. Most men aren't married to someone like Emma. Thomas's voice carried an edge. She's stronger than she looks. I can see that. Birch studied her. You have intelligent eyes, Emma. The kind that see through pretense. Tell me honestly, are you happy at Collins Manor? Or did Thomas sweep you into something you didn't fully understand? The question hung between them, Emma felt the weight of it. This was the real test. Birch was offering her an out, a chance to hint at coercion, to plant seeds of doubt he could water later. "I understand exactly what I agreed to," Emma said. Her voice was steady. "Thomas has been nothing but honest with me, about his land, his business, his expectations. I knew what I was choosing when I married him." "And you chose it willingly?" "I chose it gratefully." Emma squeezed Thomas's hand. "My life before was uncertain, unstable. Thomas offered me security, partnership, a future. Why wouldn't I choose that?" Something flickered in Birch's expression. Frustration, maybe, or calculation. "Well then," he raised his glass. "To new beginnings and unlikely partnerships. May they prove more durable than they appear." They drank. The toast felt like a threat. Dinner continued through multiple courses. Birch asked more questions about Emma's education, her interests, her plans. She answered carefully, weaving truth and fiction into responses that sounded genuine. Thomas stayed tense beside her, his hand occasionally brushing her arm or shoulder, playing the attentive husband. But Emma noticed things too. The way Birch's eyes tracked their every gesture. How he noted when they looked at each other, when they touched. He was cataloging their relationship, looking for cracks. "Thomas tells me you're quite the horseman, Clayton," Emma said during a lull. "Do you keep horses in Philadelphia?" "I do, though I spend more time here than there these days." Birch dabbed his mouth with his napkin. "The West is where the future's being built. Men of vision need to be present for it." "Men of vision," Thomas repeated. "Is that what you call land grabbing now?" "I call it progress." Birch's voice cooled slightly. "The territory needs development, infrastructure. Someone has to provide it. And profit from it." "Profit isn't a sin, Thomas." Birch leaned forward. "You profit from your gold. I profit from my investments. The difference is I'm willing to share the wealth, to build something bigger than one man's legacy. By destroying that legacy first. By offering fair compensation for it." Birch's patience was fraying. "You're stubborn, Thomas. It's going to cost you." "Is that a threat?" Thomas's voice went dangerously quiet. "It's reality." Birch's mask slipped for just a moment. Emma saw the ruthlessness beneath his charm. "You can't hold on to that land forever, not against the forces moving against you. Eventually, you'll break. Or worse." "Gentlemen," Emma's voice cut through the tension. "This is supposed to be a pleasant dinner. Perhaps we could discuss something other than business?" Both men looked at her. Birch's smile returned, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Of course. Forgive me, Emma. Your husband and I have a tendency to get carried away." He signaled for more wine. "Tell me about your plans for the house. I imagine a woman's touch will do wonders for that old bachelor establishment." Emma wanted to throw her wine in his face. Instead, she smiled. "I'm still learning my way around. It's quite large. I haven't even explored all the rooms yet." "No?" Birch's interest sharpened again. "Thomas, you haven't given your bride the full tour? There are some fascinating historical features in that house. The hidden passages, the old mining tunnels beneath the foundation." Emma felt Thomas go rigid. She kept her expression neutral. "Mining tunnels?" she said lightly. "How intriguing. Thomas hasn't mentioned those." "Hasn't he?" Birch looked at Thomas. "I'm surprised, given their historical significance. Your grandfather was quite the engineer, Thomas. Those tunnels are architectural marvels, worth preserving, worth studying." The message was clear. Birch knew about the mines, knew about the tunnels, knew exactly what was hidden beneath Collins Manor. "The tunnels are sealed," Thomas said flatly. Unsafe. I don't let anyone down there. Not even your wife? Birch's smile turned predatory. How secretive. Emma, do you find your husband keeps many secrets from you? Only the ones he thinks will bore me. Emma's voice stayed light. I'm not particularly interested in old mining tunnels. I prefer the rooms with windows and fresh air. Sensible, Birch nodded. Though sometimes what's buried is more valuable than what's above ground. Don't you think, Thomas? I think dinner's over. Thomas stood abruptly. Emma, we should go. It's a long ride back. Already? Birch remained seated. We haven't even had dessert. We're not staying. Thomas pulled out Emma's chair. Thank you for the invitation, Birch, but I think we've all said what needed saying. Have we? Birch stood slowly. I was hoping to speak with Emma privately. Woman-to-woman advice about life in the territory. It can be harsh out here for someone unaccustomed to it. My wife doesn't need your advice. Thomas's hand was firm on Emma's elbow. Come on, Emma. But Birch moved quickly. He was between them and the door. Just 5 minutes, he said. His voice had lost all pretense of warmth. Surely you can spare your wife for 5 minutes, Thomas. Unless you're afraid of what she might say when you're not listening. Emma felt the trap closing. If Thomas refused, he'd look controlling, possessive. If he agreed, Birch would have his chance to plant poison. It's fine, Emma said before Thomas could speak. 5 minutes. Thomas, you can wait by the carriage. Emma, I can handle a conversation. She met his eyes. Tried to communicate confidence she didn't feel. 5 minutes. Thomas's jaw worked. Then he nodded once, stepped back. But his eyes on Birch held a clear warning. 5 minutes, Thomas said. Not a second more. He left. Emma was alone with Clayton Birch. The older man's demeanor changed immediately. The charm evaporated. What remained was cold calculation. You're smarter than I expected, Birch said. That performance was quite good. I don't know what you mean. Emma kept her voice steady. Yes, you do. Birch moved closer. You're playing a role. I can see it. The question is whether you know the real game Thomas is playing. I know my husband's business is none of yours. Your husband is sitting on a gold mine worth millions, Birch's voice was flat, and he's pretending to be a simple rancher while he stockpiles weapons and prepares for war. Did he tell you that part? About the guns he's been buying? The men he's been hiring? Emma's heart stuttered. Guns? Hired men? Thomas hadn't mentioned any of that. You're lying, she said. Am I? Birch pulled a folded paper from his pocket, handed it to her. Receipts from 3 different gun dealers in Denver, dated over the past 6 months. Your husband has been arming himself, Emma. Not for defense, for offense. Emma looked at the receipts. The numbers made her stomach turn. Dozens of rifles, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, crates of explosives. He's preparing to defend what's his, she said. But doubt crept into her voice. Or he's preparing to start a war that will destroy this entire territory. Birch's voice softened into false sympathy. Emma, I know you're caught in this. I know you probably didn't have a choice about this marriage. But you have a choice now. You can walk away. I'll help you. Money, transport, a new start somewhere safe. In exchange for what? Emma's hands shook. She folded the receipts. What do you want from me? Information. Birch said it simply. About the tunnels. About what Thomas is hiding down there. About his plans. Help me, and I'll make sure you're protected when this all falls apart. And if I refuse, then you'll go down with him when it does. Birch's eyes were hard. Because it will fall apart, Emma. Thomas can't win this. I have resources he can't match, power he can't fight. He's going to lose everything. The only question is whether you lose with him." Emma's mind raced. The receipts in her hand felt like lead. Had Thomas been lying to her? Planning something far more dangerous than he'd admitted? "I need time," she said. "You don't have time." Birch moved closer. "Every day you stay there, you're in more danger. Thomas is unstable, desperate. Men like that become unpredictable. He's my husband. He's a stranger who bought you to use as cover for whatever he's planning." Birch's voice was sharp. "Don't mistake necessity for loyalty, Emma. You owe him nothing." The door opened. Thomas stood there. His face was stone. "Time's up," he said. His eyes locked on the receipts in Emma's hand. "What did you give her, Birch?" "The truth," Birch smiled. "Something you seem allergic to providing." Thomas crossed to Emma in 3 strides, took the receipts from her hand, looked at them. His expression went carefully blank. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." "Thomas," Emma started. "Now." His hand was iron on her arm. He pulled her toward the door. Birch's voice followed them. "The offer stands, Emma. Any time you want out, you let me know. I'll be waiting." Thomas didn't respond. He hauled Emma out to the carriage, shoved her inside, climbed in after her. The driver took off at speed. Silence filled the carriage. Emma stared at Thomas. He stared out the window. His hands were clenched into fists. "Are the receipts real?" Emma finally asked. "Yes." Thomas's voice was dead. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you didn't need to know." "I'm your wife. I'm living in that house. I deserve to know if you're stockpiling weapons." Emma's voice rose. "What are you planning, Thomas?" "Survival." He looked at her finally. His eyes were empty. "That's all. Just survival." "With explosives? With hired guns?" Emma's hand shook. "That's not defense. That's war." "Yes." Thomas's admission was flat. "It's war. And I should have told you. But I couldn't risk you knowing too much. Couldn't risk you becoming a real target." "I'm already a target. Birch made that clear." Emma's throat tightened. "He offered to help me leave, to protect me." "And what did you tell him?" Thomas's voice was carefully controlled, but Emma heard the fear beneath it. The question behind the question. "Did you betray me?" Emma looked at this man she barely knew. This husband who'd bought her freedom with one hand while hiding weapons with the other. He was dangerous, secretive, possibly insane. But he was also the only thing standing between her and Clayton Birch's cold calculations. "I told him I needed time," Emma said quietly. "I didn't know what else to say." Thomas released a breath. "That'll buy us a few days, maybe a week." "And then what?" "And then Birch will escalate. He'll come after me harder. Use you if you can." Thomas leaned forward. His eyes burned into hers. "Emma, I need to know right now. Are you with me or against me? Because if you're against me, I need to get you out before this gets worse." "Gets worse than dinner with the man who wants you dead?" Emma's laugh was hollow. "How much worse can it get?" "Much worse." Thomas's voice dropped. "War's coming, Emma. Real war. And when it starts, there won't be any safe places. Only sides. Choose yours now while you still can." Emma looked at him, at this stranger she'd married, at the danger in his eyes and the desperation in his voice. She thought of Birch's cold smile, his casual threats, his assumption that she'd betray Thomas for the right price. She thought of her father selling her, of the brothel owner's offer, of every man who'd ever looked at her and seen only something to use. Thomas had used her too, but he'd also given her a choice, had armed her with truth, however late, had asked instead of demanded. "I'm with you," Emma said. The words felt like jumping off a cliff. "Whatever's coming, I'm with you." Thomas's eyes widened. Then something in his face cracked. Relief, gratitude, something else Emma couldn't name. "Then God help us both," he said. "Because I just declared war on the most powerful man in the territory. And you just chose to fight beside me." The carriage wheels hit a rut. Emma grabbed the edge of her seat. Thomas hadn't spoken since his last words. The silence between them felt electric. "Show me," Emma said. "When we get back, show me everything." Thomas looked at her sharply. "Everything?" "The tunnels, the weapons, whatever you've been hiding." Her voice was steady, despite the fear coursing through her. "If I'm choosing your side, I need to know what I'm choosing." "It's dangerous." "Everything about this is dangerous." Emma leaned forward. "Stop protecting me from the truth. I can't fight what I don't understand." Thomas studied her face, then nodded once. "Tonight, after the house is settled." They rode the rest of the way in tense silence. When they reached Collins Manor, Mrs. Chen was waiting at the door. Her face was pale. "Mr. Collins, there's been trouble." The housekeeper's voice shook. "Someone broke into the barn. They didn't take anything, but they left a message." Thomas was out of the carriage before it fully stopped. Emma followed him to the barn. David was there, holding a lantern. On the barn wall, painted in red, were 3 words. "Last warning, Collins." "When?" Thomas demanded. "Sometime during dinner. I was checking the north fence line." David's hands trembled. "I'm sorry, sir. I should have stayed closer." "This isn't your fault." Thomas's voice was ice.
"They were watching. They knew we'd be gone."
Emma stared at the words. The paint was still wet, still dripping. Someone had been here minutes ago. Maybe they were still close. "We need to call the sheriff," she said. "The sheriff works for Birch." Thomas turned away from the wall. "Calling him would be pointless, worse than pointless." "Then what do we do?" "We accelerate." Thomas started walking toward the house. "David, I need you to ride to the Murphy Ranch. Tell Sean I'm calling in that favor. Tell him to bring his brothers and meet me here tomorrow at dawn." "Yes, sir." David ran for the stable. Emma caught up with Thomas at the house. "Who's Sean Murphy?" "Someone who owes me." Thomas headed for his study. "And someone who's not afraid of Birch. Yet." In the study, Thomas locked the door behind them. He went to a painting on the wall, a landscape of mountains and valleys. He removed it. Behind was a safe. "The gold's not the only thing my grandfather left me," Thomas said, as he worked the combination. "He left me contingency plans, escape routes, weapons caches, everything I'd need if someone came after what was ours." The safe opened. Inside were documents, maps, and a key. Thomas took the key, handed it to Emma. "This opens the tunnel entrance. It's in the wine cellar, behind the 3rd rack on the left. There's a false wall." Emma looked at the key. It was heavy, old. The weight of it felt like responsibility. "Why are you giving this to me?" she asked. "Because if something happens to me, you need to be able to get out." Thomas pulled out a map, spread it on his desk. "These tunnels run for miles. They connect to 3 exit points off the property. Here, here, and here." He pointed to marked locations. "If Birch's men come and I can't stop them, you take this map and you run. You understand?" "I'm not running without you." "Yes, you are." Thomas's voice was hard. Because I can fight my way out of most situations. But I can't fight and protect you at the same time. I need to know you can save yourself. The logic was brutal, but sound. Emma nodded. Teach me the exits. All of them. For the next hour, Thomas walked her through the escape plan. The tunnel system. The supply caches hidden at each exit. The code words that would identify allies. Emma memorized everything. Her father had taught her to play cards with a sharp memory. Now that skill might save her life. The Murphy brothers arrive at dawn, Thomas said finally. They're good men, former cavalry. They'll help us fortify the property.
And then?
And then we wait for Birch to make his next move. Thomas looked at the clock. Nearly midnight. But first, I show you what's really down there. They went down to the wine cellar. The third rack looked ordinary. Thomas showed her the hidden lever. The rack swung outward, revealing stone steps descending into darkness. Stay close, Thomas said. He lit a lantern, started down. Emma followed. The steps were steep, old. The air grew colder with each step. After what felt like forever, they reached the bottom. The tunnel stretched ahead, support beams every 10 feet. The walls were rough-cut stone. Thomas led her forward. Their footsteps echoed. After 50 yards, the tunnel opened into a chamber. Thomas raised the lantern. Emma's breath caught. The chamber was filled with crates, dozens of them, stacked and organized, and along one wall, rifles. At least 30, maybe more. This is what Birch showed you receipts for, Thomas said quietly. This is what I've been preparing. Emma walked to the nearest crate, opened it. Ammunition. Thousands of rounds. How long have you been planning this? She asked. Since the day Birch made his first offer. Thomas set the lantern down. I knew he wouldn't stop. Knew he'd escalate. I had to be ready. For war. For survival. They're the same thing now. Thomas opened another crate. Inside were sticks of dynamite. My grandfather used these to excavate the mines. I've been saving them. If Birch's men come, I can collapse the main tunnel entrance, trap them underground, or keep them out entirely. Emma's mind raced. This wasn't defense. This was siege preparation. Thomas had been planning for months, maybe longer. There's more, Thomas said. He led her deeper into the tunnel. They passed 2 more chambers, one filled with food supplies, one with medical equipment. If we need to, we can survive down here for weeks. You've thought of everything. I've tried. Thomas stopped. His voice dropped. But I missed something crucial. I didn't account for having someone I actually cared about surviving. The words hung between them. Emma looked at him. His face was shadowed in the lantern light, but his eyes held something raw, honest. You barely know me, she said. I know enough. Thomas stepped closer. I know you're brave, smart, stronger than you think you are. I know you could have taken Birch's offer tonight and saved yourself, but you didn't. Maybe I'm just stupid. You're not stupid. His hand came up, hesitated near her face, dropped. You're loyal, and that's rare. Emma's heart hammered. This man who'd bought her was standing in a tunnel filled with weapons, looking at her like she mattered, like she was more than a strategy or a cover story. Thomas! A sound echoed from above. Footsteps. Running. Then David's voice, distant but urgent. Mr. Collins! Mr. Collins, you need to come quick! Thomas grabbed the lantern. Stay behind me. They ran back through the tunnel, up the stairs. David met them in the wine cellar. His face was white. Fire! He gasped. The western pasture. Someone set the grass on fire. They ran outside. Orange flames lit the night sky, half a mile away, but spreading fast. "Get every hand we have," Thomas ordered. "Wet down the barn, the house, everything. If that fire reaches the buildings." "Already on it," Mrs. Chen appeared with buckets. "Mary's organizing the kitchen staff." Emma grabbed a bucket, started helping. The next hour was chaos, hauling water, dousing everything close to the house, watching the fire spread across the dry grass. But then the wind shifted, started pushing the flames away from the buildings, toward the empty range. "It's moving off," David said. Relief colored his voice. Thomas watched the flames. His jaw was tight. This wasn't meant to burn us out. It was meant to send another message. "What message?" Emma set down her bucket. Her hands were blistered, her dress ruined. "That they can reach us any time. That nowhere's safe." Thomas turned to her. His face was hard in the firelight. "Birch is done playing." "Then we stop reacting and start acting." Emma's voice was steady despite her exhaustion. "What's your plan, Thomas? Your real plan?" Thomas looked around at the few remaining staff, at Mrs. Chen, at David, at Emma. All of them waiting, all of them trusting him. "We take the fight to him," Thomas said finally. "But we need proof, legal proof, evidence that ties Birch directly to the attacks." "How do we get that?" David asked. "We set a trap." Thomas's eyes hardened. "We make him think I'm vulnerable, desperate enough to make a mistake. And when he sends his men, we catch them, get them to talk, get names, documentation, enough to bring to the territorial governor." "That's risky," Mrs. Chen said. "What if his men don't talk?" "They'll talk." Thomas's voice was grim. "Men always talk when they realize they've been abandoned. And Birch will abandon them the moment they become liabilities." "What kind of trap?" Emma asked. Thomas looked at her. "The kind that uses you as bait." Silence fell. Emma felt everyone's eyes on her. "Absolutely not," David said. "That's too dangerous." "It's the only way." Thomas didn't look away from Emma. "Birch thinks you're wavering, that you might betray me. If we feed that narrative, if we make him think you're ready to turn, he'll make a move. He'll send someone to extract you, and when they come, we'll be ready." "You want to use your wife as bait?" Mrs. Chen's voice rose. "Mr. Collins, that's—" "It's my choice," Emma cut her off. She kept her eyes on Thomas. "What would I have to do?" "Make contact with Birch. Tell him you're ready to give him information about the tunnels, about my plans. Set up a meeting." Thomas's voice was carefully controlled. "He'll send men to bring you in. We intercept them. Get them to talk about Birch's involvement. Record their confessions. Then we have our evidence." "And if something goes wrong?" Emma asked. "If they realize it's a trap?" "Then I get you out." Thomas's voice was steel. "Whatever it takes." Emma thought about the tunnels below, the weapons, the escape routes, everything Thomas had prepared. He'd been planning for war, but he'd also been planning to protect her. "When do we start?" she asked. "Tomorrow, after the Murphys arrive." Thomas looked around at the others. "Everyone get some rest. It's going to be a long few days." The staff dispersed. Emma and Thomas stood alone in the yard. The fire still burned in the distance, smaller now, contained. "You don't have to do this," Thomas said quietly. "We can find another way." "There is no other way." Emma looked at him. "Birch gave me his card at dinner. He said to contact him when I was ready. We use that." "He's dangerous, Emma. If he suspects, then we make sure he doesn't suspect." She touched his arm. The gesture felt natural now.
You said I was strong enough to survive this. Prove you meant it. Let me help you."
Thomas's hand covered hers. His skin was warm despite the cold night air. "When this is over, when we've won, I'm going to let you decide. Stay or go. The marriage can be real or we can end it. Your choice. No pressure. No obligation." The offer should have felt like relief, but Emma realized with sudden clarity that staying was already her choice. Not because she had nowhere else to go, not because she was trapped, but because somewhere between the forced marriage and the weapons cache and the fire, she'd stopped seeing Thomas as her captor. She saw him as her partner. "Let's survive first," she said. "Then we'll worry about the rest." Thomas nodded. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Once. Brief. Then he released her hand. "Come on, you need sleep. Tomorrow starts the hardest part." But when Emma lay in her bed an hour later, sleep wouldn't come. Her mind replayed everything. Birch's cold eyes, the weapons in the tunnel, the fire. Thomas's face when he'd said he cared about her surviving. A soft knock came at her door. Emma sat up. "Yes?" "It's me," Thomas's voice. "Can I come in?" Emma hesitated, then unlocked the door. Thomas stood in the hallway, still dressed. He looked like he hadn't even tried to sleep. "What's wrong?" Emma asked. "I need you to know something." Thomas didn't enter, just stood at the threshold. "If tomorrow goes wrong, if something happens to me, there's money. In a bank account in Denver. The details are in my desk, top drawer. Everything goes to you as my widow. The land, the house, the gold, all of it." "Thomas, let me finish." His voice was rough. "I bought you. I used you. I brought you into danger you didn't deserve. But if I die tomorrow, at least you'll be free, and wealthy enough that no one can ever force you into anything again." Emma's throat tightened. "You're not going to die tomorrow." "Probably not. But if I do," Thomas met her eyes, "I need you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better than this." "Maybe," Emma stepped closer. "Or maybe I deserved exactly this. A chance to be something more than my father's discarded daughter. A chance to fight for something that matters. It shouldn't have to matter this much. But it does." Emma reached out, touched his chest, felt his heartbeat under her palm. "And I'm not letting you face it alone." Thomas's hand covered hers, held it there. They stood like that for a long moment. Then he stepped back. "Get some sleep," he said. "Dawn comes early." He left. Emma closed the door, locked it, lay back down. This time, exhaustion claimed her. She woke to shouting. Emma ran to the window. The sun was just rising. In the yard below, 4 men on horseback had arrived. They were rough-looking, armed. But Thomas was greeting them like friends. The Murphy brothers. They'd come. Emma dressed quickly. By the time she got downstairs, Thomas had the men in his study. She could hear their voices through the door. "Been watching your property for weeks," one voice said. "Birch has at least a dozen men surveilling you, maybe more." "I know," Thomas's voice. "That's why we're doing this. We need to draw them out. Make them show themselves. Using your wife as bait seems extreme, Tom." Another voice, older, harder. "She volunteered," Thomas sounded tired. "And it's the fastest way to get the evidence we need. What if they hurt her? Then I kill every man Birch sends. And then I kill Birch." Thomas said it flatly, like a fact. But it won't come to that. We'll have her covered every second. Emma opened the door. 4 pairs of eyes turned to her. The Murphy brothers were exactly what she'd expected. Late 30s to early 50s. Weathered. Dangerous. Men who'd seen violence and survived it. Mrs. Collins, the oldest one stood. I'm Sean Murphy. These are my brothers, Patrick, James, and Michael. Tom says you're aware of the plan. I am. Emma moved into the room. And I'm ready to do my part. With respect, ma'am, Patrick spoke up. This is foolish. Birch's men aren't gentle. If they get hold of you, they won't. Emma's voice was firm. Because you and Thomas will make sure they don't. Right? The brothers exchanged glances. Then Sean smiled. She's got spine, Tom. I'll give you that. More than spine, Thomas said. His eyes met Emma's. She's got courage, and we're going to need it. They spent the next 3 hours planning. Emma would contact Birch that afternoon, use the card he'd given her, claim she had information about the tunnels, ask to meet somewhere in town, somewhere public. He won't meet you in public, Sean said. Too visible. He'll suggest somewhere private, somewhere he controls. Then I tell him I'll only meet if I can bring my driver. Emma looked at Thomas. You'll be the driver, hidden in plain sight. He'll have you check for weapons, James warned, and he'll search any carriage you arrive in. So I don't carry weapons, and the carriage is clean. Emma's mind worked through the details. But Thomas will have a gun, hidden on him, just in case. Just in case isn't good enough, Michael said. We need full backup, men positioned around wherever this meeting happens, ready to move in. They argued strategy for another hour. Finally, they had a plan. It was risky, full of variables they couldn't control, but it was their best shot at getting evidence. One more thing, Thomas said. He pulled out a small device Emma didn't recognize. This is a recording cylinder, new technology. It can capture voices. If we can get Birch or his men to admit their involvement on record, we have unimpeachable evidence. Where does Emma carry it? Sean asked. They'll search her. She doesn't. Thomas looked at Emma. You do. Hidden in your clothing. I'll be close enough to record whatever's said. Emma nodded. Her mouth was dry, but her hands were steady. When do I contact him? Now. Thomas handed her Birch's card. There's a telegraph office in town. Send a message. Tell him you're ready to talk. Today. This afternoon if possible. Emma took the card. The weight of what she was about to do settled over her. But she didn't hesitate. Let's end this, she said. The telegraph message was simple. Ready to provide information about tunnels and plans. Can meet this afternoon. Name the place. She signed it, Emma Collins. The response came within an hour. Old Miller Place, 3 miles north of town. 4 o'clock. Come alone. The Miller Place is abandoned, Sean said when they read the reply. Burned out during a range war 5 years ago. Nothing but ruins now. Perfect for an ambush, Patrick added. Or a kidnapping. He's not going to kidnap her in broad daylight, Thomas said, but his voice held doubt. He'll want to question her first, make sure she's legitimate. And when he realizes she's not? Emma asked. When he figures out it's a trap? Thomas loaded a revolver, checked the cylinder. Then we fight our way out. Together. The carriage ride to the Miller Place felt like riding toward execution. Emma sat across from Thomas. He wore a driver's coat and hat pulled low. The recording device was hidden in his vest pocket. The revolver was tucked against his spine. Remember, Thomas said quietly, you're nervous, uncertain. You want protection from me, from this life. Play to his ego. I know. Emma's hands were ice, despite the afternoon heat. Thomas, if this goes wrong... It won't. But his eyes said otherwise. The Murphy brothers are already in position. Sean's in the old barn. Patrick and James are in the tree line. Michael's watching the road. You'll be covered.
And you?
I'll be 10 feet away. Close enough. Thomas reached across, took her hand, squeezed once. You're not alone in this. Emma held on to that thought as the ruined Miller place came into view. Blackened timber, collapsed roof, empty windows like dead eyes. A single horse was tied out front. Someone was already there. Thomas pulled the carriage to a stop 30 yards away. That's close enough.
Any closer, and they'll search the carriage. What if they search me?
They will. Let them. You're clean. Thomas's voice was hard.
But Emma, if at any point this feels wrong, if you sense real danger, you run. You understand? Don't wait for me. Don't try to be brave. You run. I thought we were fighting together.
We are, but I need you alive more than I need evidence. Thomas's eyes burned into hers. Promise me.
I promise.
The lie came easily. Emma had no intention of running. Not now. Not after everything. She climbed out of the carriage. Her legs shook. She forced them steady, started walking toward the ruins. A man stepped out from behind the collapsed wall. Tall, hard-faced, armed. Emma recognized him from town. One of Birch's security men. Mrs. Collins. His voice was flat. Mr. Birch sends his regards. He'll be along shortly.
I thought...
Emma's voice wavered perfectly.
I thought it would just be you. Someone to take a message.
Plans changed. The man moved closer. Mr. Birch wants to hear what you have to say, personally. You understand, given the gravity of your claims. Emma's heart hammered. Birch himself. That wasn't the plan. That complicated everything. I need assurances, she said. I need to know I'll be protected, that my husband won't find out. Your husband won't find out anything. The man's smile was cold. We'll make sure of that. Now, I need to check you for weapons. Just a precaution. Emma forced herself to stand still as his hands patted down her arms, her sides, her skirts. Professional, quick, impersonal. He found nothing, because there was nothing to find. She's clean, the man called toward the ruins. Bring him out. Clayton Birch emerged from the collapsed building. He looked different out here, less polished, more dangerous. Behind him came two more men, both armed. Emma! Birch's smile was warm, false. Thank you for coming. I know this wasn't easy for you.
You said you'd help me.
Emma let her voice shake.
You said I could get away from him. From all of it.
And I will.
I am.
Birch moved closer. But first, I need to know what Thomas is planning. You said you had information about tunnels, about his preparations. Emma glanced back at the carriage. Thomas sat motionless on the driver's seat, far enough away that he shouldn't be able to hear. But the recording device in his vest would catch everything if she could keep Birch talking. He has weapons, Emma said. Guns, ammunition, explosives, hidden in tunnels under the house. I know about the tunnels. Birch's voice sharpened. Tell me what I don't know. Where exactly are the weapons caches? How many men has he hired? What's his timeline?
I don't know all the details.
Emma wrapped her arms around herself.
He doesn't tell me everything. But I've seen the maps. The tunnel system is extensive. Multiple exits, supply rooms. He's planning for a siege.
A siege, Birch laughed.
Against whom? Me? Does he really think he can hold out?
He thinks he can destroy your men if they attack. He's been planning it for months. Emma took a breath. But that's not all. He's been gathering evidence, documents, witness statements. He's building a case against you, to take to the territorial governor. Birch's expression went flat. What kind of evidence? Proof of the attacks, the fires, the threats, names of men you've hired, payments you've made. Emma was making some of this up now, filling gaps with educated guesses. He has receipts, letters, everything he needs to prove you're behind the violence. Does he? Birch's voice was ice. He turned to his men. Check the carriage, and bring me that driver. Emma's stomach dropped. What? No, he's just your husband in a disguise. Birch's smile was cruel. Did you really think I wouldn't recognize him? That I wouldn't expect exactly this kind of trap? Two of Birch's men started toward the carriage. Thomas stood slowly. His hand moved toward his back. Don't! Birch called. You draw that weapon, and my men put 6 bullets in your wife before you clear leather. Drop it. Now! Thomas hesitated, then carefully pulled the revolver. Dropped it. Good, Birch nodded. Now come here. Slowly. Thomas walked toward them. His face was stone, but Emma saw the calculation in his eyes. The angles, the distances. He was looking for an opening. This was clever, Birch said as Thomas reached them. Using your wife as bait to get me to incriminate myself. Very clever. Unfortunately for you, I've been careful. Everything I've done has been through intermediaries, untraceable. Except you're here now, Thomas's voice was calm. Admitting you've done something that needed to be untraceable. Admitting nothing, Birch gestured. One of his men grabbed Thomas's arms. Another began searching him. They found the recording device within seconds. Clever indeed. Birch held up the cylinder. New technology. Expensive. Someone's been preparing thoroughly. He smashed it against a rock. The device shattered. But preparation only matters if you survive to use it. You kill us, and you'll have federal marshals investigating within a week. Thomas's voice stayed level. Our deaths would raise too many questions. Oh, I'm not going to kill you. Birch's smile widened. You're going to die tragically. A fire at Collins Manor. Terrible accident. You and your wife trapped inside. Everyone will sympathize. And when the ashes cool, I'll buy the land from your estate at fair market value. All legal, all clean. Emma's blood turned to ice. You're insane. I'm practical. Birch looked at her. I did offer you a way out, Emma. You chose wrong. Did she? A new voice cut through the tension. Sean Murphy stepped out from behind the barn. His rifle was trained on Birch. Or maybe you did. Patrick and James emerged from the tree line, both armed, both covering Birch's men from different angles. Drop your weapons, Sean said calmly. All of you. Now. Birch's men hesitated. Sean fired once. The bullet kicked up dirt at the nearest man's feet. That was a warning. Next one's not. Sean's voice was flat. Drop them. The weapons hit the ground. Birch's face went white. You're interfering in business that doesn't concern you, Murphy, Birch said. I'll have you arrested. On what charge? Protecting my friends from armed men on abandoned property? Sean walked closer. Besides, I think the territorial governor will be more interested in what we've been recording for the past 10 minutes. Michael Murphy stepped out from behind the carriage. He held up another recording device. Smiled. You smashed the decoy, Thomas said. His voice was cold satisfaction. The real one's been running since we arrived. Birch's face went from white to purple. You admitted to planning murder, to arson, to months of attacks and intimidation. Thomas pulled free from the guard holding him. The man didn't resist. All recorded, all in your own words, all admissible in territorial court. No court will convict me. But Birch's voice shook. I have connections, lawyers, money. You have a recording of you confessing to murder conspiracy. Sean moved beside Thomas. That's what you have. And every newspaper between here and Washington will print the transcript. You really think your Eastern money friends will stand by you after that? Birch looked around, at his disarmed men, at the Murphy brothers, at Thomas and Emma. His empire was crumbling in real time. What do you want? He finally asked. His voice was defeated. I want you gone. Thomas's voice was steel. Off my land, out of this territory. Back to Philadelphia, or wherever you came from. Take your men, take your company, disappear. And if I refuse? Then I take this recording to the governor. I press charges. I make sure every detail of what you've done becomes public record. Thomas stepped closer. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Or on the run. Your choice. Birch was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Sharp. Bitter. You win, Collins. This time. He looked at Emma. You could have been wealthy, protected. Instead, you chose this. I chose him. Emma moved to Thomas's side. And I'd make the same choice again. Birch's laugh was hollow. Then you're both fools. This territory isn't big enough for your principles. Someone else will come. Someone smarter. Someone who won't make the mistakes I did. Let them come. Thomas's arm went around Emma's waist. We'll be ready. Will you? Birch gestured at the ruins around them. This is what happens to people who fight the future, Collins. They burn. They collapse. They become ghosts. And you? He looked at Emma. You tied yourself to a sinking ship. Then we'll sink together. Emma's voice was firm. Better that than drowning alone in your ocean of lies. Birch had no response. He turned to his men. Get the horses. We're leaving. And Birch, Sean called as they started to move, if we hear about any more accidents, any more fires, any more mysterious problems for the Collins family, we'll know where to look. And we won't be giving warnings next time. Birch didn't answer. He mounted his horse. His men followed. They rode off without looking back. Silence fell over the ruins. Then Emma's knees gave out. Thomas caught her, held her up. It's over, he said quietly. It's really over. Is it? Emma looked up at him. He was right. Someone else will come. Someone always does. Then we'll fight them too. Thomas's hand cupped her face. Together, like we did today. Together. Emma tested the word. It felt right. Solid. Real. Is that what we are now? I don't know. Thomas's voice was rough. What do you want us to be? Emma thought about the last week, the forced marriage, the fear, the danger, the lies. But she also thought about the honesty between them, the partnership, the way Thomas had trusted her with his plans, his weapons, his life. I want us to be partners, she said it clearly. Real partners. Not a cover story, not a strategy. Real. Partners. Thomas's eyes searched hers. Not husband and wife? That too, if you want it. Emma felt heat rise in her cheeks. I know this started as business, as necessity. But somewhere between the forced vows and the fire and the trap we just survived, it became something else. At least for me. For me too. Thomas's admission came out rough. I bought you to use as cover, to play a role. But Emma, you became real to me. More real than anything else in this mess.
Then let's make it real. Emma's hands fisted in his shirt. Not a proxy marriage. Not a convenient arrangement. A real partnership. A real marriage. Built on everything we've survived together.
Thomas's answer was to kiss her, hard, desperate, full of everything they'd been through and everything they'd become to each other. Emma kissed him back with equal intensity. This wasn't the kiss of strangers forced together. This was the kiss of two people who'd chosen each other, who'd fought for each other, who'd nearly died for each other. When they broke apart, the Murphy brothers were politely looking away. "We should go," Sean said. His voice held amusement. "Before we interrupt something that should wait for privacy." Thomas laughed. The sound was free, relieved. Emma had never heard him laugh before. It changed his whole face, made him look younger, happier. "Come back to the house," Thomas said to the brothers. "All of you. We owe you everything. The least we can do is feed you." "And pay us," Patrick grinned. "That favor you called in doesn't cover nearly dying." "Double what I promised." Thomas was already pulling Emma toward the carriage. "Whatever you want, name it." They rode back in a convoy, the Murphy brothers on horses, Thomas and Emma in the carriage. But this time, Thomas sat beside Emma instead of on the driver's seat. His arm was around her shoulders. Her head rested against his chest. "What happens now?" Emma asked quietly. "Now we send the recording to the territorial governor. We file formal charges. We make sure Birch never comes back." Thomas's voice was steady. "And we rebuild. Hire new workers. Repair the damage. Make the ranch work." "And us?" "Us." Thomas's arm tightened. "We learn to be married. Really married. We figure out how to live together. Love together. Build something real out of what started as necessity." "Love together." Emma tested those words too. "Do you think we can?" "I think we already do." Thomas tilted her face up. "I think I fell in love with you somewhere between you breaking into my study and you walking into that trap without hesitation. I just didn't realize it until I thought I might lose you." Emma's eyes burned. "I fell in love with you when you gave me the key to the tunnels, when you trusted me enough to show me your weapons, your plans, everything you'd been hiding. That's when I knew you saw me as more than property. You were never property to me." Thomas's voice was fierce. "Even when I bought you, even when I was lying about my reasons, you were always a person, always someone worth saving." "Then save me again." Emma smiled through her tears. "Every day for the rest of our lives, and I'll save you right back." "Deal." Thomas kissed her again. Softer this time. Sweeter. "Mrs. Collins." "Mr. Collins." Emma laughed. The sound felt foreign. When was the last time she'd laughed? Before her father's debts? Before the forced marriage? Before everything? "I think I like that name now. I think I'll keep it." "Good, because I'm not letting you go." Thomas held her close as the carriage rolled toward home. "Not now. Not ever. We fought too hard to get here." At the house, Mrs. Chen met them with tears in her eyes. "I heard the whole town's talking about Birch leaving. Is it true? Is he really gone?" "He's gone." Thomas helped Emma down from the carriage. "For good. We won, Mrs. Chen. We actually won." The housekeeper pulled Emma into a fierce hug. "I'm so glad you're safe. When you left this afternoon, I was terrified we'd never see you again." "I'm harder to kill than I look." Emma hugged her back. "We both are." The celebration that night was small but genuine. The Murphy brothers, Mrs. Chen and the remaining staff. David. Everyone who'd stayed despite the danger. Everyone who'd believed in Thomas when the smart choice would have been to run. Thomas gave a toast. To survival. To partnership. To everyone who stood with us when standing meant risking everything. To Emma, Sean added, who walked into hell and walked back out without flinching.
To Thomas, Emma corrected, who built a fortress and then trusted me enough to give me the keys. They drank, they ate, they laughed. The weight of the last week, the last months, lifted slowly. It would take time to fully believe the danger was over, to stop looking over their shoulders. But tonight, they could breathe. Late that night, Emma found Thomas on the front porch. He was staring out at the dark land, the same land he'd fought so hard to keep. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Couldn't stop thinking," Thomas looked at her, "about how close we came to losing everything. How one wrong move would have ended us." "But we didn't make a wrong move," Emma stood beside him. "We made all the right ones. Together." Together. Thomas took her hand. "I like that word. I want to keep using it." "So do I," Emma leaned against him. "What happens tomorrow, when reality sets in and we have to actually be married?" "We wake up, we have breakfast, we start figuring out how to run a ranch and a marriage at the same time." Thomas's thumb traced circles on her palm. "We argue about things. We compromise on others. We build a life." "That simple?" "That complicated," Thomas smiled. "But we've survived worse. I think we can survive happiness, too." Emma thought about the girl who'd climbed out of that carriage a week ago. Desperate, broken, sold by her own father. That girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd fought armed men, who'd set a trap for a killer, who'd chosen love in the middle of war. "I never thanked you," Emma said quietly, "for saving me from my father's other offers, for giving me a chance at something better." "You never needed to thank me," Thomas pulled her closer. "You saved yourself, Emma. You broke into my study. You demanded truth. You walked into that trap knowing you might die. You saved yourself. I just gave you the opportunity." "Then thank you for the opportunity." Emma turned in his arms, looked up at his face in the moonlight. "And for seeing me, really seeing me, not as property or strategy or convenience, but as someone worth fighting beside." "Worth fighting for," Thomas corrected. "Worth living for. Worth building a future with." "Then let's build it." Emma rose on her toes, kissed him. "Starting right now. Starting tonight. No more waiting. No more strategies. Just us." Thomas's answer was to sweep her into his arms, carry her inside, up the stairs, to his room instead of hers. Because they weren't separate anymore. They weren't forced partners or convenient spouses. They were choosing each other, fully, finally, freely. The door closed behind them. Outside, the land stretched dark and quiet. The threats had retreated. The fires had burned out. The war was over. And inside Collins Manor, two people who'd started as strangers bound by contract were becoming something neither had expected. Something real. Something worth every battle they'd fought to get here. Emma and Thomas Collins had built their partnership on lies and necessity and desperation. But they'd forged it into truth through fire and blood and trust. And that partnership, that marriage, that love, would prove stronger than any gold buried in the earth, any mansion built on secrets, any threat that came riding toward their gates. They'd survived the worst together. Now they would build the best together. And no power in the territory, no desperate man, no corrupt company, no dangerous scheme would ever come between what they'd created from the ashes of a forced arrangement. They'd started as prisoner and captor, buyer and bought, strategy and cover story. They'd become partners in survival, then partners in battle, and finally, partners in every sense that mattered. And that transformation, from forced contract to chosen love, was worth more than all the gold beneath Collins Manor,
worth more than all the land stretching to the horizon, worth more than anything either of them had ever possessed, or lost, or fought for, before this moment.